help me in welcoming Miss Mary Williams.
Good morning. It is so good to be here with you today, and I'm going to talk about scholarships and internships. So my first question is, who needs money for college? You know what? I'm like this gentleman over here. When I was in that situation, I had both hands up. So we're going to talk about scholarships and internships. Who knows UNCF's motto? Correct. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. And our goal is to be able to invest in you through the scholarships and internships. We have over 400 scholarships and internships at UNCF. And those scholarships and internships are provided to students attending UNCF institutions, of which you are one. If you move to the next slide for me, please. So to all UNCF institutions, as well as other four-year institutions, other HBCUs, and even two-year colleges. So you can stay connected to us on social media. But today, to get into the meat of our discussion, we're going to talk about scholarships and internships and career preparation. How many of you are registered on UNCF? Okay. That's really only about a third. How many of you who are registered have updated your profile? So we have your current classification, okay? It's a little less. It's really a three-step process in applying for scholarships. You log on and register, you create a profile, and then you apply. But here's why you want to create a profile for those of you who didn't raise your hand. If you have a profile on UNCF and it is up to date, meaning your current classification, then we're going to send you information on scholarships that you may be eligible for. And so what you have to do is click the details and just apply. So our goal is to partner with you. We know you need funds for school. So we want to make sure we're assisting you by pushing information out to you. The only way we can do that is your information is up to date. So if I move to the next slide, how many people feel like, look, I applied to a lot of scholarships, but I just never get them? Okay. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk with you about some key tools to make your application stand out. Now, I share with you wearing two hats. One, as my role in UNCF, and the other as a parent of a son who graduated debt-free from Morehouse. So the things we're going to talk about, some of them may seem basic to you, but in reviewing applications, I'm going to share with you the things that can make a difference in your applications. So I want to start by saying familiarize yourself with the application. How many of us really read instructions when we're doing something? And some of those hands were like this, because we know we scan those instructions. But when you review them, we're telling you exactly what we're looking for. We're going to share with you if we're looking for community service and leadership activities or students who are focused in a certain area, so that you know what to write to in your essays. So when you go through those instructions, we're giving you all the details. I call that a good cheat sheet. It tells you everything we're looking for. And if you go through those thoroughly, and then you come to writing your essays, it's going to make it much easier, and you're going to stand out because you're writing to what we're looking for. The other thing is to make sure you meet all the basic eligibility requirements, and then create a timeline to beat the deadline. We did a survey on why students don't complete applications. And just to give you a baseline, when I look at the numbers here at Morehouse, about 30% of the applications that are started are complete. So we did a survey and said, why is this happening? What can we do differently? Because we wanted to learn from you. What do you think the top reason? The people. Okay, somebody said essays. That's always the first answer, but I was really surprised that in the survey, and we did it twice, and it came out the same, essays weren't at the top of the list. But we are going to talk about essays today. What do you think the top reason was? Somebody said procrastination. Similar. Basically, they missed a deadline. So a person started an application, but they missed a deadline. That was number one. Number two was very similar in that they felt they were too busy. But the third top reason, students stated that they didn't think they were going to get it. Now, you know that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And I share the results of that survey so that you get that out of your mind. If you think you're not going to get it, what's going to happen? You're not going to get it. But you want to make sure that you always put your best foot forward and always apply. So you want to have a timeline to beat the deadline and submit all the required documents. Now, if we get to the next slide, somebody brought up essays, if you hit the next slide. So essays, how many of you like to write essays? Let me ask the question a little differently. If there was a scholarship that pays you up to $20,000 and you had to write 4 essays, who likes to write essays now? That's what I'm talking about. See, this is how I want you to think about essays. I want you to see essays as dollars and cents. Because when you're writing them to pay for your education. And when you're writing essays, who are you talking about? You're talking about yourself, and who knows you better than you? Although in one group, a person said, my mama knows me better, but you know yourself the best. So when you're writing essays, I want you to have a whole different mindset. I want you to think about your future. And you know when you think differently about something, you can make it happen, right? You do. It's your thought process. So when you're writing those essays, you want to make sure you know it's for your future. But here's a tip around essays, though. So when you're applying for applications and you're writing essays, you want to make sure that you save them. And then you can repurpose them for other applications. And then once you repurpose those, you save those as well. Eventually, you are going to have a bank of essays that you can use. So it's going to make it very easy and less time-consuming for you to complete applications. So you have a bank of essays. That's the first step in saving time. And take advantage. You have a writing center here? I would make sure I'm going to the writing center and have them review them for me. And again, you'll build up a list of essays. Let me tell you the most common mistake people make around essays. If it is a 3-part essay question, they answer 1 or 2 parts and not the third. Or they answer the first and the third. Now, these are basic things, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, those are basic things. But yet, they are the most common mistakes. So the other thing I have up here is show impact and leadership. What we're talking about now is how do you make your application stand out from others? Someone give me an example of a leadership activity. Okay, I heard captain of a football team and an all-school president. So let me use those 2. Pardon me? Okay, so I've got 3. But let me start with the captain of the football team. If I'm writing down that I'm the captain of the football team, I want to articulate my role. And you're saying everybody knows what a captain of a football team is, but let me tell you what I'm looking for in your applications. I want to understand the impact of what you're doing. So even as the captain of the football team, you are serving how many ever people are in the football team. And you detail the things that you're doing as a captain, because you know each captain can have different roles or can enhance that role. If you are all president of the school, I want to hear how many students are in your institution that you are serving. If you are vice president of the activity, I want you to tell me, I'm vice president of this organization, and I have the opportunity to serve X number of students to achieve. You hear the difference? I'm not just saying that I'm an officer or I'm a leader in this. I'm talking about the impact. Give me an example of a community service activity. A little louder. Feeding the homeless, I heard. If I said on my application I was feeding the homeless, and let's say I happen to do that monthly, I would state that on a monthly basis, I volunteer at a shelter, and we're able to serve X number of families. You hear the difference in me just saying that I volunteered at a shelter? You hear it? I can't hear you. Okay. And let me tell you why I want to make sure that you hear me. Because we're talking about tips to make you successful in completing your scholarship and internship applications. And these things work. I've seen it through my son, and I've seen it through many of the applicants who apply to scholarship programs. So those impact statements stand out. Another time saver. If you have a document that highlights all of your community service activity and all of your leadership activities, and you have those associated impact statements, again, it makes it easy to apply for scholarships. You can copy and paste. So we talked about having a bank of essays. We talked about having a bank of leadership and community service activities that you can copy and paste for applications, but you want to choose the ones that are appropriate for the particular application. Realistic self-appraisal. To me, this is a very interesting example. When we look at your applications, we're looking holistically. We're looking at your academics, your community service, your leadership activities. So in an application, if you wrote, I have always wanted to be a doctor. It's been my dream to be a doctor. And then in another part, you write, I hate science. Science is my worst subject. I can't wait till I don't take science class anymore. That is an unrealistic self-appraisal. So I give that example because there are times we look holistically at everything you write. So you want to make sure that everything is congruent. So we talked about impact and leadership, realistic self-appraisal, and the importance of essays and how you can bank them to use for other applications. If you go to the next slide. Right, number one, in advance. So as soon as you decide you're going to apply for a scholarship, you want to make sure that you identify that recommender and ask them in advance so that they can complete it on time. But there's some key tips in asking how to do so. Respectfully requesting, absolutely. There's another word, you have to know? Oh, he said you have to offer something in order to get something. So in other words, when you're asking the person to recommend you, you want to give them your resume or something so they know the other things you've done. They may know what you do in their class, but I'm sure you may do a host of things outside of that class. But there's one more piece. When you ask someone, you want to say, can you write a positive recommendation for me? And in your mind, you're saying, well, that's a given. You want a positive. And that's what you're probably saying. But let me tell you what I read on an application. A person who was a recommender for a student wrote this: I don't know why this person selected me, but, and then they went on to complete the recommendation. Now, because of confidentiality, we could not say anything to the student or their family. But from that moment on, I vowed that in every outreach opportunity that I would talk about the importance of a reference, because these are things you may not see. So what does that mean? You're asking for a positive recommendation, you're giving them tools, you're making sure that you are handling yourself in a respectful manner so that they can be a positive recommender for you. And if you ask someone and they say no, don't get an attitude. Be grateful. Be grateful. Because if someone feels that they can't support you, you don't want them to. So recommendations are key parts, and that really supports your application. They're helping you to potentially get a scholarship. So references are important parts of the application process. If you move to the next slide. Now, before I go through this next part, I talked about impact statements, I talked about leadership, but there's another piece. I go all across the country and I have the wonderful pleasure of sharing with people about enhancing and improving their scholarship and internship applications. And what I've learned about students like yourself is that you are awesome. You have so many great things going on. You have so many talents. And what I find is these talents are because you do things just because it's part of who you are. And you do them. But you may not realize that they're leadership and community service activities. So when you're documenting your activities, make sure you think about everything you do. I've sat down with students one-on-one, and they start filling out an application. And sometimes they list 2 leadership goals, or 2 leadership activities, or just 2 community service, because they say that's all they have. But once we have a conversation, and they start thinking about all the things they do, they double and triple that. Because these are things that you're actually doing, you may not think about them as leadership and community service. So as you are creating your list of activities and your impact statements, think of all that you do. So now I want to talk very quickly about securing internships. You want to make sure you utilize your Writing Center and your Career Center. If you go to the next slide. And you want to make sure that you have a professional presence. What does that mean? We all have social media. Most of us do. You want to monitor your page content. Be thoughtful of what's on there. Be thoughtful of who has access to it. Because you may know already that some jobs, if you're applying for a job, or scholarships, they may look at your Facebook page. I was managing a scholarship program, and I got an anonymous letter in the mail. And that anonymous letter were pictures of somebody's Facebook page. And it read, "Is this a person that you want as a scholar?" Make sure that your email addresses are professional, as well as your passwords. When UNCF, if you have to reset your password, we can't see it now. We give you a temporary password and you reset it. In the past, we could see passwords. A student called in and asked us to reset their password. I validated it was the right person. And when I went to read the password to give it to them, it was so vulgar that I couldn't repeat it. So be thoughtful, next slide, of your passwords. Many times, if you receive a UNCF scholarship, we may ask that you send in a thank you letter and a headshot. So these are some examples. You want to make sure you have a professional headshot. And the reason we added this to our presentation is because somebody sent in a copy of their student ID as a headshot. Therefore, we enhanced our presentation to talk about the importance of headshots and even thank you letters, because if we ask you to send in a thank you letter and a headshot, we give it to the donor, because the donor will be able to say, here are some great students that I provided funds for, and for us, hopefully they'll give us more money to give to you. Many times they may look at that and say, wow, I want this student to come speak at a conference. And there are times when even an internship or a job may materialize because of your thank you note and your headshot, if you move to the next one. I'm just leaving us up there very briefly, resume tips. So you want to make sure that your resume is clear, that it has a consistent format, everything aligns. And again, I would invite you to use your Career Center to ensure that your resume is intact. We ask for resumes for some scholarships and for many of our internships. That's why we have this slide here. If you move to the next one. So now I want to highlight for you just some of our scholarships and internships. We have over 400 scholarships and internships. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is an example. And for those of you who are freshmen, you'll see some that are for upperclassmen, because I want you to know what to look forward to in the future in applying to opportunities. So this first one, this just closed last Friday for Dell Corporation in Round Rock, Texas. They were looking for students, and you can see the majors on the screen, to be an intern for that corporation. This should be available again next year. I want you again to know what to look forward to. Next slide, please. Any freshman in this audience that meets this criteria, I want you to consider applying to the UNCF Koch Scholars Program. That will be available later this fall. You can see the GPA requirements and the majors. So the UNCF Koch Scholars Program is for students who are interested in entrepreneurship. So it's up to $5,000 a year. It's renewable. So it's a total of $20,000 through your academic career. And they provide an online community to support you in putting together entrepreneurial activities. So this is the UNCF Koch Scholars Program. Next one, please. The Malcolm X Scholarship. Anybody seen this on the site? Well, if you saw it on the site, you know the deadline is what, tomorrow? Deadline is tomorrow for this one. And I bet you everybody in the room, most people are eligible for this. This is up to $4,000. Deadline's tomorrow. So these are the type of opportunities that exist. So if I were you and you see this and you didn't see it before, I'd make sure I try to get it in. You do need a reference to support you in this, the Malcolm X Scholarship. Next. This is the Eunice Walker Johnson Scholarship, again, freshmen through seniors. The next one, and these are all samples. National Black McDonald's Operators Association, minimum GPA of 2.8, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and you can see the associated majors. Just to give you a flavor, next one, Suez. Suez is an internship, it's based in New Jersey for sophomores and juniors. You can see the majors here, but for most of our internships, you will have to relocate. So know that when you apply to the internships, you'll relocate to wherever the companies are hosted. Next one, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield for juniors. You can see the majors there. And those of you who are freshmen, you can look ahead to the type of things that you're going to be able to apply to. And when you are applying for internships, what's the purpose of that? Right, career preparation. Because oftentimes those internships will turn into jobs. And really, internships are really in-person interviews. We had an Empower Me tour that came to the AUC area last year. and we had people interview for internships. One person interviewed and received a position with Wells Fargo for a summer internship. That student is now working for them even during the year part-time. Now that wasn't the plan, but they did such a good job, so now that they have a job during the school year. And I would venture to say they would probably be offered a full-time job once they graduate. Next. Alliance Data, sophomores, juniors. You can see the host of majors. And if you look and say, you know what, Ms. Williams, I don't see my major up there. We have over 400 scholarships and internships that are available. This is just a sample of some. You can go on our website, you can search. Once you have your profile on the website and you've registered, we're going to send the information to you. But even when you send it, I always say go through the search. You can put in your classification and just identify everything that's available. Next slide, please. The Walton Fellows Program. I don't think I have any juniors in here today. We do have a couple of juniors. All right, those juniors, I'm going to have a session this evening as well. So this Walton program is open now. The deadline is January the 8th. This is for students who are interested in education reform, and it's all majors. So whatever your major is, if you're interested in education reform, like advocacy toward education, if you're interested in advocacy, you don't have to be interested in just teaching. But this is the Walton Education Fellows Program. You attend a conference where they work with you on your resume, talk to you about protocol around internships, provide you with a mentor, and then have a case competition. One young lady that I met with when I was at another school in Arkansas last week, she was a Walton Fellow, and she stood up and told her peers, it was a great experience, but I left there with 3 job offers. That's what we're talking about around internships. Next, please. Colgate Palmolive, you may have used some of their products. Another opportunity, and these things are coming up. So if you go to the website, you're not going to see them now. So I want to give you heads up so that you're prepared. You know what the eligibility criteria are and that you're ready to apply. Next, please. Anybody heard of Carnival Cruise Line? Carnival Cruise Line. They have an internship and scholarship. And I'm sorry, I have been saying something incorrectly. Let me clarify it for you. These are paid internships. These are all paid internships. Because I needed to do something to get you excited out there. Because if I were you, I'm like, this is money. These are all paid summer internship opportunities. So, and for the Carnival, it's a scholarship and an internship. This should be opening up in a few weeks. Now, I will tell you that some of the eligibility criteria may change because they're finalizing it for this year, but it was too important for me not to leave it out. I wanted you to know, hey, this is coming. If you potentially meet the eligibility criteria, you need to be on the lookout in the next few weeks and apply to the Carnival program. And let me ask you something. If a deadline for a program, let's say like the Walton, which is January the 8th, when should you have your application complete? Yeah, somebody said November 1st or right now, as soon as possible. And I really wouldn't wait till after the Christmas holidays, because you know what happens. You know, you're out for the Christmas holidays, you know, you have finals and things, and by the time you come back, that deadline is over. So you want to also give yourself an early time frame in applying for your scholarships. And that means that your recommender has to have theirs submitted on your behalf as well. So Carnival Cruise Line coming up in the next few weeks. Next one, please. Association of American Publishers. Any juniors in there or seniors, I'm sure I'll talk to this evening, if they like to read, this is an opportunity. These are companies that basically publish your textbooks, and they're going to have students to serve as interns. Next. So, as I give you some final comments, if you do have your phone here, take it out And I'd like you to log on to this link, that's an O at the end, and if the scholarships or internships that are listed on that application there, any of those that you're interested in, I want you to check those. And what we're going to do is make sure we reach back out when they open. I'm going to have the program team members to reach out, and they can support you in your effort in applying. So they'll send you a note and welcome you to apply for those opportunities. So it only takes 2 minutes to do that. While you're doing that, let me give you some information on the general application. If you have a 2.5 GPA or above, you should be completing the UNCF general application. That serves as a pool. That's not an application where you're going to hear back right away. What we do, donors contact us, they're looking for a student that may be from another state, going to school in Georgia, and we select students out of that general pool. So once you complete it, and you have to complete it every year, you won't hear back right away, but as we identify scholarships in there that you're eligible for, we'll reach out and say, you've earned this scholarship. The other scholarships and internships, they're competitive scholarships and internships. You should hear back from us within an 8 to 12-week period once the application closes. So 2 key things. Anybody in here that's received a UNCF scholarship? Stand up for me. Thank you. I've asked them to stand up because I want you to see your peers. I want you to see that this is real, that they have UNCF scholarships. And if I were you, I'd make sure I find out who they are, because as I am applying for opportunities, these are some of the people I want to reach out to. Thank you so much for standing. But we're going to have another support for you. We're going to be building a UNCF ambassador program on campus. And it's going to be led by the National Pre-Alumni Association. They're going to have 8 students, representing 8 total, who will help support you in completing scholarship applications. Excuse me, last slide, please, next slide. And that ambassador program is sponsored by Bank of America. And the last slide has my contact information. I'm Mary Williams, as well as my colleagues. So we are there to support if you have questions. Every scholarship and internship that you apply for at UNCF, at the bottom of the first page, it gives you the email address of the program manager that is managing that initiative. You can always click the link and email them with any questions you have. So the goal today was to give you some tips on applying for scholarships and internships, to make your application stand out, to give you some tools to save you time by building your essay bank and building your list of community service and leadership activities. Because UNCF does say a mind is a terrible thing to waste, and it is a wonderful thing to invest in. Thank you so much for your time.
I'll tell them to come out. Okay. So again, can we give Ms. Mary Williams a warm round of applause, please? We have just a couple of minutes. You don't need to stand up just yet. A couple of housekeeping things. First of all, there are going to be no scans in the very back, right? They're going to be on this side, this left side, and this right side. So that's how scanning is going to work today. The second thing that I wanted to say is I did want to reiterate our thanks for Mary Williams. I've known her I was thinking about it, for over a decade now, and she has ensured that she is at the forefront of making sure that she's given you all money. I think that's a big deal. And I also want to thank Kevin Booker for ensuring that this space was made for her today to be able to present to you. One other housekeeping note with respect to FAFSA forms, those forms, you should have received information saying that those forms are available to you already. If you've not yet received that information, know that FAFSA forms are available for you to fill out beginning October 1st. And lastly, we have the Student Government Election Committee. We want you guys to give an introduction, give a commentary, and then we're going to sing the college hymn, and then we're going to be out.
What's good, brothers? My name is Eric G. Stokes, a senior biology major from Birmingham, Alabama, and I serve as the chairman for the Board of Elections. So as you can recall, last week we sent out a ballot with the constitutional amendments. There was a problem with the formatting, and it wasn't appropriate to where that you could see what each of these amendments were before you decided if you wanted to approve or not approve. We have since revised this ballot, and it was sent out to you early this morning around 1 o'clock. So if you could please all go and check your personal emails and fill out this ballot for the constitutional amendment. Just as a warning, I would like for you guys to approximate about 30 minutes to complete this ballot, as there were quite a few amendments to this Constitution. But you will have until tomorrow at 11:59 to complete this ballot. If you have any questions regarding this ballot, just make sure that you email us at sgaelections1867@gmail.com.